Hi there, starting out solitary witches. My name is Avalon and I have been approached by the lovely Lippy witch to be a sub on this beautiful flourishing channel. And part of my duty as a sub is to create an introduction video. So this is my introduction video. So as I've just stated, my name is Avalon and I'm required to tell you a portion of my practice, of myself as my witch self. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that as quickly and as succinctly as I can manage at this stage, and hopefully without too many interruptions. It is the middle of the day here in Cairns, far north Queensland, where I reside, and it can be rather colourful in sight and sound at this time of the day. Starting with the garbage man that has just decided to waltz on past at this most opportune time. So I live in Australia, and it's important for me to emphasise at this stage that I am not Australian, but I live in Australia. Now you probably can't guess my nationality or the country in which I was raised, but I am actually Brazilian born and raised. I am what you would call a hereditary practitioner, and what this means for me specifically is that I was raised in a house of practitioners, and I belong to a lineage of practitioners. Now, the type of practitioner that I'm referring to here are from Yoruba-based culture. So I come from a family that is very dedicated to Macumba, which is a Yoruba-based spiritual system of witchcraft that is similar to voodoo or Santeria. And Macumba is broken into 3 branches, and that is Umbanda, Kimbanda, and Candomblé. Now, my family specifically practice Umbanda and Candomblé, and we have nothing to do with Kimbanda. Macumba is a polyistic practice, and their pantheon of gods is called the Orisha. Some of the main features of that particular style of magic or practice is ancestor and deity veneration. It is horsing, also known as ritual possession. It is anchored to mediums specifically, so practitioners of Macumba tend to prefer to be called spiritistas, spiritists, so to speak, because they work heavily with the spirit world. And offerings, food and animal sacrifice and initiations and so many other little tidbits are what create the very crux of Macumba. And so that is the faith that I was raised in. So at my very core, I'm a Macumbera. I am a Maju Rodanche in Macumba. That means I'm a medium that is capable of receiving a spirit into my body. That means that I am capable of horsing or engaging in ritual possession. And that's my function. The majority of women in my line are Maju Rodanche, with the exception of my mother and perhaps even my baby sister. We don't quite know yet because she hasn't had the medium experience, but my mother is a very well-known, very well-respected Ekadji, and the Ekadji are the link between the spirit and the medium, and the Ekadji hold space and make sure that the spirit is behaving themselves, so to speak, while they are in the body of a medium. And if there is ever an issue, it's the Ekadji that knows how to send that spirit away. And it's a sacred relationship, and the medium has a sacred relationship with the deity, and so forth. So that is the faith that I was raised in. Since I moved to Australia, I had begun, I guess you could say, my solitary path. I moved away from my family, a large part of my family, to move here to Australia to be with my father. And my father is Australian, he's not Brazilian. My father is not spiritista, he's not a medium, he doesn't practice witchcraft or umbanda, but he is present at all times, and he always was at meetings and sessions, as they were called, in the terreiro. So he's a very open-minded gentleman, and he's very supportive of me and all of my spiritual pursuits, as is my family. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But moving here to Australia, I was met with certain roadblocks. I had left my culture behind, so to speak, and although I carry it in my heart always, of course, but what was readily available and quite commonplace in Brazil was impossible to find in Australia. And so I went through what one would consider to be a dry period. And I had to learn to think outside the box, to diversify, and that is when I really began cultivating my own path as a solitary. Now, what was available at that time, and that was in the 90s, was of course Feng Shui and information on Indian practices such as yoga and the chakras and the Hindu pantheon of gods. There was a little bit on Norse traditions, and of course there was Wicca. And there's always been shamanism in and around me wherever I go. That's a very, very old practice, and I think that even in the 90s it was just very available, perhaps not to the extent that it is available today, or that, yeah. So I began exploring things like Feng Shui and the chakra systems and Wicca, because that is what was available to me. And my very first book that I bought while I was a teenager here in Australia, I was 16 years old, and I was begging my father to take me to this spiritual expo that was all the way across town, was the Big Blue Book, the complete book of witchcraft by Buckland. And I was fascinated. It had every facet of ritual that I really enjoyed. I'm very ritualistic in my path, and so I began from there, from the point of view of Wicca, and I cultivated what I practice today. So I was able to merge practices and merge teachings without too much mess in between. And so my practice as it stands today, I am an elemental practitioner of witchcraft. I am formally trained through the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druid as a bard, a storyteller or a story keeper. I'm big on reading, I'm big on cultivating a firm foundation in my practice. I am big on questioning what I read, and I invite others to do the same on a regular basis. I am not a solitary practitioner anymore, I belong to a coven, and I assist my coven in creating a strong and bold tradition. As an elemental practitioner, I place great emphasis on nature and being amongst nature. It's a very earth-centric path. It is what helps to keep me grounded. My magical practice is always quite balanced with the 4 elements, and I see the world through an elemental lens. I rather enjoy the primal activation portion of witchcraft that enables me to go out into the darkest parts of nature and light fires and camp and drum and sing and dance ecstatically around a fire. I'm very primal and tribal in my proclivities, I guess you could say. And I really enjoy interacting with other practitioners and assisting and encouraging people to cultivate a unique spiritual practice within their witchcraft. I believe that witchcraft is a verb. It is something that you do, and I believe that witchcraft is unique to the individual. Every single practitioner has his or her own unique flavour of witchcraft. It is as unique as a fingerprint, and it is entirely up to the individual to guide and shape that path. And so I seek to only be of assistance in that guiding and shaping. So take what I say with a grain of salt, of course, because that which works for me might not necessarily work for you, and that which works for you might not necessarily work for me. But I have cultivated my path over a very, very long time. I am approaching my 40s, and I have been a lifetime practitioner. I have travelled all over the world. I have spent time in tribal environments, both in Australia and outside of Australia, and I like to engage in primitive culture. The types of books that I read are, of course, your stock standard books on witchcraft, and some of the old ones, some of the new ones. You know, I've got a plethora of books on my shelf, but I really enjoy reading historical books, like the Mabinogion or the Mabinogi, however you like to pronounce it, the Norse Eddas. I prefer the Bray translation. I like to read about shamanism and how I can influence my practice with that primal aspect, because I do believe that shamanism is very primal. It's very anchored in the ancient world. And I love the concept of plant merging consciousness and tapping into animal energy in a totemic sense. And yes, so as myself, as I stand, I'm animistic in my practice, and I follow the Wheel of 8, also known as the Witch's Wheel of the Year, or the Pagan Wheel of the Year, or the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, or the Wheel of Esbats and Sabbaths and cross-quarter festivals. I follow that particular wheel. And while I honour the Godhead in all pantheons, I am strictly a goddess-oriented practitioner. And I work with 9 goddesses throughout the year, and 2 godheads, 2 aspects of the masculine divine, one at the light half and one in the dark half of the year. I am one of those people that believes in discipline for myself. I don't advocate for discipline for everybody, because discipline is not something that is going to mesh well with certain individuals, but I'm very disciplined in my practice, and I do have a daily practice. I have multiple altars throughout my home, and I have one altar that is my mainstay, and that is the altar that I come to every single day, and I honour the deities that I choose to work with, and I perpetuate any magical workings that I am working on through that altar. But I am big on altar and the creation of sacred space. As far as certain skills or certain quirks that I have, I am known for my tarot and oracle collection. I guess you could say I am a professional tarot reader, an oracle reader, and I'm a spirit worker. That is my profession. And so I have quite a small collection of cards, and that is what I choose to do for a living. And I love the concept of divination. I love to learn different facets of divination. I love pendulum work, I love rune work. Not runes necessarily for divination, but I love runes for a magical language. I find that intoning runes can be incredibly powerful. And so I have myself a few sets of runes that I like to use, my favourite being a deer bone set of runes. Which brings me to my fascination with bones. I have bones and skulls on my shelves. I have snake skins and beetle carcasses, because I like to work with the natural world, because I am an elemental and an earth-centric witch. I craft most things that I make, although it's not unusual for me to reach out to a practitioner that has an innate skill in creating something that I might want, and I'm all for that, you know, that purchase with that particular skilled practitioner. And that's a little bit about me. I guess that, oh, I should probably mention too that I'm a mother of 3. I'm married and a mother of 3, and the place that I live in is Cairns, Far North Queensland, Australia, and I think I said that in the very beginning of the video, but I thought that I'd explain just very quickly what this part of the world is like to live in. And this part of the world is a tropical environment. Right now we are edging towards Lammas or Lunasa, and it is hot. We enter into the lightning moon time, the lightning moon time of the year. We have more lightning storms in February than at any other time, and that's a beautiful thing. And it's so hot here. It's so humid. It's so hot. And everywhere around me at the moment is this vibrant emerald shade of green, and every plant and every flower is in full bloom at this moment in time, and you mow your lawn and it is overgrown again in 2 to 3 days, and I'm not joking because I personally get in there and mow my lawn. It's not a great time to go camping at this time of the year because of the snakes. The snakes, the spiders, the green ants, and a few other little creatures such as horse and march flies, and they all bite. Australia is known for having creatures that all bite. And so I choose to do the majority of my camping and interaction with nature in the time between sort of the autumn equinox, which is like March-ish, all the way through to around the September period. So that gives me a good chunk of the year that I can go out and interact with my natural world and do everything from tree planting to gardening here in my own home to herb work of any kind, and you know, just travel and immerse myself in waterfalls and beautiful landscapes. So I think this might actually be the longest introduction anyone's ever done, but I thought that I would go there. I have a lot to say, mostly because I have a lot of time in my life that I could have talked about there. And yeah, so I'll stop myself right there so as to not bore you to absolute death. But it is an absolute pleasure to have been approached by Lippy Witch to be a part of this beautiful blossoming channel, and I look forward to participating when I'm needed and getting to know all of you. So with that said, thank you so much for sitting with me. Much love and many blessings. Please look after yourselves. Bye.